Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We have just concluded the 2031 season and are preparing for the playoffs. Great season for the Royals, best record in the American League, best record in baseball, won the AL Central by 15 games over the Chicago White Sox, so we have earned a bye through the wild card round, which is what we were hoping, and we've earned home field advantage for as long as we are alive in the playoffs, which was also a goal of ours. So a very good regular season. Certainly not a dominant team. You know, we won 102 games, the Mariners won 100, and the Giants won 101. So I don't feel like we're guaranteed a championship by any means, but obviously going to do the best possible to hopefully get there. Only two injuries of note right now. One is Corey Seager, who we had picked up right before the trade deadline as a potential upgrade at second base over Ricardo Cabrera. He's out with a sprained knee for 3 weeks, so we're probably going to have to make it to the World Series for him to have an impact on us in the postseason, unfortunately. And then the other one, Jasmine Diaz, our late free agent signing. We signed him after the end of spring training, right when the season was beginning. Had a really nice year for us, hitting .312 with 37 doubles, 16 homers, and 112 runs scored. Put up a brilliant 157 OPS plus. Waiting to hear on the status of his injury. Obviously hoping it's something minor. We'll find out what happens. And it's bad news on the Jasmine Diaz front. Herniated disc out for about 3 weeks. So similar to the situation that we have with Corey Seager right now. Maybe we get him back if we make it to a World Series. But definitely not an optimal situation to lose two useful bats here for the potential playoffs. So don't need to put them on there. So it's a bummer. We have a really good offense this year. We were second in the American League in runs scored when all was said and done, and you can see first and second in just about every offensive category except for home runs and walks. And then our pitching staff, also second best in the AL. Obviously, that adds up to 102 wins, as we already talked about. You can see generally in the top 5 in pretty much every pitching category. Good defense also. So a very well-balanced team. Did have that losing month in June, but finished strong with a 15-7 record in September. So definitely stinks to be losing two key bats. Diaz is the bigger loss, I think, at this point. We knew when we were picking up Seager that he is wrecked physically. Obviously a bummer that he didn't make it to the postseason roster for us, because although he's not quite as good defensively as Ricardo Cabrera, he's definitely an upgrade offensively. So we'll be missing Seager's bat, and with Diaz gone, we're going to have to go back to Sal Frelick and Junior Marin, who have been our kind of corner outfielders for the last few years. Both of them have some injury issues historically over the course of their career, and Sal Frelick is wrecked physically now. So having Diaz and basically having 3 very competent corner outfielders to either play those outfield spots, play DH from time to time, and then give some time off and give us a little bit of insurance when players were banged up was definitely useful. And unfortunately, we're not going to have that option for the playoffs. And the loss of Diaz, I think, means the young outfielder Nazir Muley will make the postseason roster. You can see he only had 68 at-bats at the major league level, hit .235, only 1 homer. So definitely not the same type of bat that Diaz has. But you look at the rest of our options for the postseason roster, and there's Aiden Harris, who's never played in the majors yet. Actually has a pretty similar offensive profile to Muley. also versatile defensively, not necessarily great anywhere. And then Borji Franzen, who is also very versatile defensively, but hit .086 in 35 at-bats at the major league level. So feel that having Jackson Chorio and Nazir Muley on the postseason roster rather than Corey Seager and Jasmine Diaz is obviously not optimal, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens when we find out who we're going to be playing in the ALDS, and we do have home field advantage. We do have a good pitching staff, and we do have one of the best offenses in the American League. We don't hit a lot of homers, but with players like Alex Vasquez, Bobby Witt Jr., and AL batting champ Angelo Velasquez in the lineup, we still should be able to put some runs up. And in those wild card series, there was only one that wasn't a sweep. The Yankees, who we will be playing, swept our division rival, the Angels. The Red Sox swept the Tigers. The Padres swept the Cardinals. And then the Pirates won 2-1 over the Braves. You may remember that the Braves signed a lot of big-time players, including some big-time players off of our team last season, and they still didn't make it past the first round of the playoffs. Check in and see what Spencer Bauer did this past year for them, who was our ace for a long time. Pitched 25 games, all starts for them. 5-9 record, not great, but a 3.37 ERA, 126 ERA plus, 75 FIP minus, and a 4.1 WAR. So definitely a solid year for the longtime Kansas City ace. You can see that he made $27.4 million, and he's going to be making that amount next year before he can potentially opt out. Or if he opts in, he's still going to make over $100 million over the last 4 years of the deal. So it was a pretty expensive deal that, given Bauer's injury history, we didn't necessarily feel comfortable paying him that kind of money, but good to see that he was at least relatively healthy over his first year in Atlanta. And now we're going to move on to tomorrow and get ready to see what our Royals can do against the Yankees in this ALDS. As I mentioned, we will have the home field advantage, but definitely don't love the fact that we're missing a couple key offensive players as the series begins, but that's what happens. And getting ready for this Yankees series, I just moved to a 4-man rotation, so it's going to be Nola, the trade before the trade deadline, Ben Borgman, Caleb Lagerwell, and Gordon Graceffo are going to be the 4 men in the rotation, according to Byron Nichols. Ricky Vanasco actually moves into a setup spot in the bullpen. He was our closer last year, moved back into a starting role this year when he was very good, 14-2, 3.41 ERA. We've had Nola managed on a pitch count all year. We're going to kind of take the training wheels off a bit for the playoffs and put him up to 100 pitch count. He was 8-3 with a 2.21 ERA for us, which was excellent. But you can see we only got 101 2/3 innings out of him. He's wrecked physically, and he has been dealing with a finger blister all season long. So we're in the playoffs now, though, and no need to baby him anymore. Let's try to get all the value that we can get out of him, because it's unlikely we're going to be signing him for next year. So let's ride him as hard as we can, and hopefully get some good performances from not just Nola but the rest of the starting staff here in this series against the Yankees. So definitely not an easy series here ahead of us against the Yankees. They did end up fading a bit around the stretch, and they lost out in the AL East to the Red Sox. But you can see we were second in the AL in runs scored and runs against, but they weren't far behind us, fourth in runs scored and third in runs against. So the Yankees going to be a formidable opponent for us here. Nola, who we just talked about, going to be on the mound for us. Can see 24 starts and just 101 2/3 innings. So we've had him on a pitch count, and then he's also had a number of games this year where he went 12, 18, 20 pitches, and that blister that he's been fighting acted up. But we're going to try to get the most out of him that we can right now. We're going against Cole Henry. Actually had kind of a down year, 8-8 record with a 5.79 ERA. But when you look at his pitching profile and 5 pitches, and the fact he was 13-10 with a 3.67 ERA last year, and had 2 good years in a row in Arizona and then with the Yankees. But he's been a below-average pitcher over the course of his career, so kind of interesting because his pitching profile looks like he should definitely be an above-average pitcher, but hasn't gotten those results on the field. Hopefully it will stay that way today as we kick off Game 1 of the ALDS here in Kansas City. And Nola, of course, hurt, suffered a day-to-day injury, back tightness, recovery going to take a week. We'll have to see what happens with that. I guess at least it's a different injury. Can see we lost 7-3. Cole Henry didn't do much. Nola didn't do that much either, just 3 2/3 innings, gave up 2 earned runs. Got decent relief from Dabovich and Wiesenberger. Then they got to Tyler Bosma, and then they really got to Ricky Vanasco pitching out of a bullpen for the first time in a while, so that's disappointing. And then Mackenzie Gore and Zach Jacobs also pitched, but not an optimal situation. Nola gets saddled with the loss, but it looks like it was really Vanasco that things got away from us on. So difficult first game of the series for these Royals. We did get a pinch hit home run from Nazir Millet, so the youngster at least produced in his first opportunity at the playoffs. But we are already up against it here in the series with the injury to Nola and the loss in Game 1. Moving on to Game 2, Ben Borgman, big trade deadline acquisition for us, who pitched pretty well, only a 4-4 record, but a 3.41 ERA with 73 strikeouts and only 14 walks over 68 2/3 innings, 125 ERA plus, 65 FIP minus, and a 2.2 WAR in those 13 starts. So really pitched well for us. He's a guy we brought on from Colorado, had never done too much with the Rockies, but I think it was largely the park. We've been thinking about trying to sign him to an extension, but he's looking for a lot of money, $23 million a year, 7 years for a player who's going to turn 30 this offseason, is already fragile, and really hasn't proven much at the major league level other than kind of being a competent 4th or 5th starter. So he's looking for a lot of money. We'll see what he can do in this critical Game 2 for us. We're going up against Justin Moore. Looks like he spent most of the year in Double-A. 6.75 ERA in 6 2/3 innings. Definitely doesn't profile as someone who scares us all that much. Guessing the Yankees might be doing something with openers or something against us, which is I'm an old school guy, so the whole opener thing doesn't really do a lot for me, but it is what it is. But we'll see if hopefully we can get to more early, even if he's not going to be pitching too many innings. And we do get an 8-5 victory, saddled more with the loss. Bobby Witt Jr. with a homer for us, so turn things around there. That was good news. Bobby Witt Jr., 2 for 3, 3 runs scored, a homer, and a run driven in. Also got 3 ribbies from MJ Melendez on 1 hit. Must have been a clutch double there in the 5th inning off of Moore. So I guess Moore wasn't actually a starter. Kind of, wondering about the Yankees pitching staff. Presumably they have some injuries, or maybe they just use their top pitchers in that wild card series, and the matchups will get a little more difficult for us in the next couple of days. But we obviously feasted on Moore with 9 hits, 2 walks, and 7 runs over 4 2/3. Borgman was good, 1 run over 5 innings. Goebel and Jacobs were not good out of the bullpen, but we still ended up holding it together. Josh Hader came on and pitched a third of an inning to earn the save. So got the W here in Game 2. Hopefully we can head to New York and would love to win both of those games in a row because Game 5 is now going to be a little bit more of an interesting situation for us with Nola banged up. We may have to think about putting, when we get to game day, which we're trying to sim ahead to right now, when we get to game day, we may need to think about not pitching Vanasco for these next couple of games, since he would presumably be the Game 5 starter for us back in Kansas City. Although we will have 2 days of rest for Lager or for Borgman, so Borgman's already had 1 day of rest. He would have rest the next 2 days. And then we'd have another day off before we headed back to Kansas City for Game 5. So I guess Borgman would be on regular rest if we have to use him instead of Nola in a potential Game 5. And actually Nola, supposedly only 3 days left with that back tightness. So it looks like we may be okay, given that we're going to have the off day in between. So I think we can still continue to use Vanasco out of the pen. So in New York, we have Mr. Consistency, Caleb Lagerwell on the mound, 12-9 record, 3.86 ERA, 3.1 WAR. I guess it was technically a little bit of a down season for Lagerwell, just putting up a 3.1 WAR after having a WAR over 4 each of the last 2 years. But you look at what he's done ever since he joined us: 13-8, 13-4, 11-7, 14-7, 12-10, and 12-9. ERAs always in the threes. He is a big-time pitcher for us, even though he's only had that one All-Star appearance. So happy to have Lagerwell on the mound, and we're going against Justin Bruhl, who had a solid year for the Yankees. 11-9 with 4 saves, 3.36 ERA, and 124 strikeouts over 107 innings. It does look like he started 11 games, but you look at his stamina and you don't think he's going to go very long. So probably will be facing their bullpen. Hopefully we can get to Bruhl early here in Game 3, and hopefully Lagerwell gives us a typical Lagerwell start with, 6+ innings and 3 or less runs. And we did get a 3-0 win. Lagerwell must have been pretty good. Another homer from Bobby Witt Jr. So hopefully take control back of the series here. Lagerwell, no earned runs, only 2 hits and 6 strikeouts over 5 2/3. And then Dabovich, Bosma, and Hader, who picked up his second save, came on. We didn't do much against Bruhl, 2 runs in 6 innings, and then we got a run off of the reliever Martinez. But Bobby Witt Jr., 2 for 4 with those 2 runs driven in, including the home run. And we also got a ribby from Nazir Muley, who started in the outfield for us today. So series certainly isn't over, but obviously feeling a little bit better about things now after winning 2 in a row after getting routed there 7-3 in Game 1 of the series. So we move on to Game 4. Gordon Graceffo on the mound for us. Good, solid pitcher. One of the weaker performances this year from our starting staff, with a 4.65 ERA, barely over 500 with a 9-8 record, but still put up a 2.4 WAR. Definitely a fine person to have as a 4th starter in a playoff series. We're going to be going up against a pretty good pitcher, though, in Kumar Rocker, who 10-6 with the Yankees this year and a 3.67 ERA, a season after going 13-9 with a league-leading 2.59 ERA for the Yankees. So we'll see if we can get to the 31-year-old right-hander in Game 4, but certainly looks like one of the tougher pitching matchups for the Royals in this series. And the Royals take advantage of that, although it doesn't look like Rocker actually was involved in the decision. The reliever, Yohan Martinez, got the win. Graceffo got tagged with a loss. Lost 9-5, so we're headed back home for a pivotal Game 5 in this ALDS. Rocker gave up 2 hits over 4 2/3, and then Martinez gave up 3 runs in 3 innings. So we got to their starter a bit, and we got to their bullpen, but just an ugly performance by Graceffo. 7 runs, 5 of them earned over 2 innings. After that, the bullpen was solid. A couple more unearned runs by R.J. Dabovich. So obviously we had a pretty significant error there. Not sure. It must have been the one by Bobby Witt Jr. because it happened before Zach Jacobs was on the mound. So critical error by Bobby Witt Jr., it looks like, allowed several unearned runs to score, unfortunately. But at least we've got home field advantage for the final game. Reed Galliman, a former Kansas City Royal, now the Yankees closer, looks like he got banged up in the game. And then Brian Reynolds also maybe out. So I guess the injuries are going in our favor as we head into a potential Game 5 on October 6th, 2 days from now in Kansas City. So hopefully we will be fully back and healthy. Obviously, we're going to still be missing second baseman and outfielder in Seager and Diaz, but the hope is that Nola is ready to go. We paid him a lot of money to be our ace this year, and he's pitched really well when he's been on the mound. It's just that he hasn't really been on the mound as often as we would have hoped, but he's got a chance to make up for that in this pivotal Game 5 against the Yankees here in the ALDS. So we'll wait to move forward and then see what happens here in Game 5. Before we even get to the game, Sal Frelick, intercostal strain. He's going to be out, so definitely not optimal. That's the end of his season. So with the loss of Frelick on top of the fact that we're already missing Diaz, that is definitely going to negatively impact the offense. And you can see that Frelick, you can't see this necessarily, but when it popped up that he's out for 4 to 5 weeks, he is definitely going to be out for the year. So we are going to... can we put him on the... Yeah, we can put him on the playoff injured list. We know he's going to miss the next series, so that'll allow us to at least bring up another player for this pivotal Game 5. Seager still out 1 to 2 weeks. Jasmine Diaz still out another couple of weeks, so obviously neither of them are really an option. But we're going to give some thought to who can potentially help us a little bit, because we're going to need all hands on deck for this pivotal Game 5. And we don't really have a lot of great options. Victor Rosa is the guy that spent the most time in the majors this year, hit 267 in 105 at-bats. But if you remember from our last episode, when we sent him down to the minors, we had a lot of people kind of say Rosa is a clubhouse cancer. We don't like having him on the team. Glad that you kind of booted him to the minors. So I don't know that that's the type of guy we want to bring up for a pivotal Game 5. I mean, if he was a big time hitter, we certainly could. But he's a league average-ish guy at best. So that kind of leaves us with Borgie Franzen, who probably a below average hitter, pretty versatile defensively, but hit .086 in 35 at-bats in 253 with 17 homers in AAA. Or Aiden Harris, kind of similar batting profile. Did hit 288 with 15 homers in AAA this year. Was a second-round draft pick of ours back in 2024. Also versatile defensively, not as versatile as Franzen, but he did kind of hit better in AAA, and he hasn't been a disaster at the major league level hitting-wise like Franzen was. I hate to have a guy making his major league debut in the playoffs, but I think we are going to go with Aiden Harris. Add him to the playoff roster, update our lineups. Got Bolden, Harris, and Chorio potentially coming off the bench for us. Update the pitching staff and just make sure everything is ready to go as we head into this Game 5. Looks like Nola is on the mound going up against Luis Gil. 2-7 with a 5.89 record for the Yankees this year. Only started 10 games, only has 40 stamina. So I don't know if they plan to use him as an opener, but they're probably not going to get a ton of innings out of him. So the hope is that we can get to Gil, score some runs, and move on to the ALCS. Still unclear of whether we're going to be playing against Boston or Seattle. So both of the AL series going to a pivotal Game 5, whereas both of the NL series were sweeps. The Pirates sweeping the Brewers and the Padres sweeping the Giants. So let's see what Aaron Nola can do. This is why we brought him onto the team. Game 5, winner take all, American League Division Series against the New York Yankees. And the Royals are going to be moving on. 8-4 victory. Bobby Witt Jr. gets the ALDS MVP award. You can see that neither of the starters was involved in the decision. Wiesenberger came on in relief and got the W for us. Fabrizio Valera hit a home run for us. He was likely playing for Frelick, so good to see him produce with a homer, 2 ribbies. Nola, not great again. 2 earned runs over 3 1/3 innings. Wiesenberger came on, though, in relief in that 4th inning. And Luis Gil only pitched against only got 1 out in the game. And Christopher Gao came on, and we got 5 runs, 3 earned against him in 3 innings. And then we got a couple more runs off of Brule in relief, who actually started a game earlier in the series. So funky stuff going on in the Yankees pitching staff. Looks like they were kind of trying to piece it together like MacGyver with duct tape and popsicle sticks, and they weren't able to do so. After Wiesenberger, Hubbard did give up a run, but then between Dabovich, Bosma, and Hader, we got the final 3 1/3 innings of very clean relief. Just 2 hits allowed, no walks, 3 strikeouts. So Luis Gil got hurt, so that's why he went so short. Looking at the offense today, mentioned Valera already. Also got 2 ribbies from the young center fielder Velasquez, run driven in by Vasquez. Marin, Melendez, and Muley also with RBI. So we got through the series, went to 5 games, and now we're going to find out whether we play Boston or Seattle. I guess the only positive thing is that both of those teams are also stretching their pitching staffs out to a 5th game also. And we are going to be going against the Mariners in the LCS, the best team in the AL against the second best team in the AL. Kind of an interesting dynamic in those division series. Seattle and Kansas City, the 2 best teams in the American League with home field advantage, one hard-fought 5-game series against the Yankees and the Red Sox, while the 2 teams with the byes in the National League and the 2 best records, the Giants and the Brewers, both got swept despite having home field advantage in those division series. So hard-fought series for the Royals, and now we are on to face the second best team in the American League in the Mariners. So pitching staff is not set up perfectly since we did have to go to 5 games, but hey, we've moved on to the ALCS, so we are happy with that. Now we are just 1 step away from the World Series. And before we get the ALCS started, just going to check in. I don't think that anyone's going to be ready as far as the injured players. Jasmine Diaz, still out for 1 to 2 weeks with that herniated disc. So not much has changed there. Frelick, obviously done for the year with that 4-week injury. And then Corey Seager, only a week away. But we could be 5 games into the series by the time he might be able to play, so hard to put him on the roster. So don't think there's really anything to change as far as our playoff roster here. Definitely not. Would not have expected to have Nazir Muley, Aiden Harris, who's never even played in the majors, and Jackson Chorio all on the roster, but at least our pitching is relatively healthy as we begin this series against the Mariners. So we will just do a quick update, make sure that our Byron Nichols has the staff the way he wants it. We're going to be going with Borgman in game 1. Let him set up those lineups. And we are on to the AL Championship Series. Avery Weems on the mound for Seattle. 8-7 record with a 3.37 ERA over 133 and a third innings pitched. Did strike out 158 batters, so looks like he's a pretty effective pitcher. Has 3 nice pitches, pretty good stuff. His movement and control are not exceptional. So we will see if we can get to the 34-year-old and see if Ben Borgman can make us enjoy the fact and appreciate the fact that he was our big trade deadline acquisition along with Seager this year. This is exactly why we brought him on board. So let's see what Borgman can do for us. As you know, the Royals second in the AL in runs scored and runs against. Seattle, best pitching staff in the American League, first in runs against, but only 6th in runs scored. So hopefully we will be able to get to their pitching staff and score some runs here as we kick off the ALCS. And we did get a 4-1 win in that opening game. Borgman started, and he's in the headline here, but Dabovich actually got the W. Weems got the loss. Save for Hader, youngster Juan Palomares with his first postseason home run for us. Borgman was good. 1 earned run, 1 hit, 8 strikeouts over 5 innings. Dabovich was on in relief when we finally broke through against Seattle. It looks like they also got a pretty good start from Weems. And then Bosma and Hader with 3 innings of perfect relief, striking out 4. So good start to the series. Palomares drove in 2 of those runs, and then Nazir Muley, the youngster who's been pressed into action, another run batted in. So certainly not optimal that we are missing both Frelick and Diaz in the outfield, but Muley has been contributing so far. Hopefully that will continue. So we are going to move on to game 2 now, where we are going to have our booby Caleb Lagerwell on the mound. And Lucas Kim on the mound for Seattle. 12-9 record, 4.05 ERA. Has a nice arsenal of 5 pitches. Good stuff, good control, not necessarily great movement. Doesn't throw all that hard and is an extreme fly ball pitcher. Kansas City is not a great homer park, but would love to think that maybe we can get a couple of dingers off of Kim, hopefully get another typical excellent Caleb Lagerwell performance, and would love to be heading to Seattle up 2-0. And we will be after a 7-1 win. Interesting again, we won 4-1 and 7-1, but neither of our starters got the W's in these games. So looks like we're not scoring until a little later in the game. We got homers from Vasquez and Marin. Looking at the box score, Lagerwell was good, 4 2/3 innings. That's why he didn't get the win. He didn't go 5 innings. 1 earned run. He did walk 3, but was solid. It looks like we brought on Dabovich to get out of trouble there in the 5th inning. And then Hubbard ended up with a win. And actually, no, we must have still been close then. Oh, yeah, we already had Hubbard was assigned the win. That makes more sense. And then Jacobs came on in relief to kind of close things out. Is that our old buddy? Trevor Rogers, our old friend, pitching in relief for Seattle. Oof. He is wrecked physically at this point. And after leaving us, had an injury-plagued season in Houston, just pitched 6 1/3 innings in 2030. This year split the season between Houston and Seattle, but only 55 in 2/3 innings between the two teams. Only started 1 game, so playing for the major league minimum at this point. So a good start to the series. Big game from Vasquez, 4 for 5 with 2 runs driven in. Also got contributions, at least in terms of ribbies, from Bobby Witt Jr., Velasquez, Marin, Muley, and Lopez. So the ALCS is off to as good a start as it possibly could be for the Royals with 2 big victories here in Kansas City. So 2 games away from the World Series potentially, but the next 3 will be tougher as we're going to be on the road in Seattle for games 3, 4, and 5 if we need it. Moving on to Game 3, Graceffo, who had that very disappointing performance for us in the ALDS, got banged around pretty hard on the mound for us. Javi Tamayo, pretty solid pitcher, led the American League with 18 wins, a 3.12 ERA, 110 WHIP, 76 FIP minus, and a 5.5 WAR. Made the All-Star team for the first time ever this year, just 24 years old. So excellent young pitcher who looks like he would, I have to think, be a pretty strong candidate for the AL Cy Young Award with that 18-3 record, 3.12 ERA, 275 strikeouts, and 210 1/3 innings. Brilliant young pitcher on the mound. So the pitching matchup here in Game 3 absolutely favors Seattle, but we'll see if we can steal one. Not to be the case. We got a good pitching performance. They needed everything they could possibly get out of him. Beat us 2-1. Neither Tamayo nor Graceffo were involved in the decision. They both gave up 1 earned run over 7 innings. Vanasco was the weak spot out of our bullpen, and Diaz pitched 2 nice innings out of the bullpen for them. So if you had told me Graceffo was going to hold them to 3 hits, no walks, and 1 run over 7 innings, I would have felt pretty good about us stealing a victory. So a little disappointing that we waste that good pitching performance, but I would think that tomorrow with Nola on the mound, hopefully the pitching matchup favors us. We're going up against Jack Billings, actually a pretty good pitcher. 31-year-old, really nasty stuff, 3 excellent pitches, was 10-7 with a 3.94 ERA, 238 strikeouts in 178 innings. So kind of seeing here in games 3 and 4 some of those big-time pitchers and why the Mariners allowed the fewest runs in the American League this year. So obviously going to need to take at least 1 in Seattle. Would love for it to be today with our ace Nola on the mound. And Seattle gets the win in Nola, another day-to-day injury. So we have not been able to piece him together in the playoffs. He went 4 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, so he wasn't great. Dabovich, Wiesenberger, Gore, and Bosma on in relief. Billings pitched really well, 5 hits, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, only 2 earned runs over 7 innings. Diaz gets the hold. Just not a lot of offense from the Royals today. Did have 9 hits, but only got 4 runs. So we're tied back up at 2 after the big start to the series. The Mariners have evened everything. Home run from Jared Kelenic. So it's now a 3-game series. We'll move on. Would obviously love to get this game 5, so our backs are not totally against the wall when we head back to Kansas City. Would certainly love to be heading home with a 3-2 lead rather than a 3-2 deficit. Borgman and Weems, who have both been good in the playoffs, match up again, duplicating their Game 1 matchup. And we did get the W, 4-3. Juan Palomares blasts the Mariners to victory. Hubbard with his second win in relief. Weems takes another loss. Juan Palomares. Fabrizio Valera also with a 2-run single in the first, but Palomares 2 for 4, 2 runs scored, 2 runs driven in, and did have that solo homer. Also got the 2 ribbies from Valera. Looking at the pitching matchups, did Borgman get hurt? No, Borgman got hurt, and Nicky Lopez was injured while running the bases, so neither of those is optimal. Strained oblique, 1 to 2 weeks for Borgman, so obviously he's not going to pitch again in this series, but his availability for the World Series, if we get there, certainly looks in question. And then Nicky Lopez pending a diagnosis. So we'll get all of that on the off day, I'm sure. But after Borgman got hurt, got decent relief, it looks like Hader picked up his 4th save of the playoffs. So team is banged up, but we got the victory. So the Padres and the Pirates also in a 3-2 series. So nothing has been decided yet. We've got an off day tomorrow to hopefully get the diagnosis on Lopez, and I guess hope that Borgman's injury isn't as serious as it looks, and maybe he'll be able to pitch in the World Series for us if we get there. But getting banged up a little bit, but we're up 3-2 and we're heading home, so there's still no excuses to not get into the World Series. Would be a second World Series appearance for these Royals. We were there in 2027 when we won. That's the only time we've been there in this playthrough. So obviously would love to get back there this year. Nicky Lopez day-to-day for about 2 weeks. Ugh. Definitely not optimal. Strained rib cage, minimal impact on hitting and running. No impact on his throwing. We just don't have a lot of options. I don't see us putting him on the IL with the playoff IL and guaranteeing that he's going to miss the World Series if we get there with a day-to-day injury. It only has a minimal impact. Nola's still out 5 days with that back tightness. Borgman out for a week. But again, neither Nola or Borgman should be pitching in either of these next 2 games. Let's see if Nichols makes any changes to the lineup with Lopez banged up. Now he still wants to play him at short even though he's banged up, so we'll let him do that. Injury situation getting a little nasty. Lucas Kim on the mound for Seattle. He had a good year, 12-9 with a 4.05 ERA. We've already talked about him, but certainly with Javi Tamayo, likely AL Cy Young Award winner, on the mound potentially in Game 7. We got to win this one today with Caleb Lagerwell on the mound. Definitely don't feel real confident that we're going to get another performance like from Graceffa like we did in Game 3, and really want to avoid Javi Tamayo. So we're going to hopefully get through this one. Hopefully Lopez can play shortstop for us, and hopefully Caleb Lagerwell, who's been brilliant this postseason, gives us another big game. And it wasn't a big enough game. Kim got the win, Lagerwell with the loss. We did get a homer from Bobby Witt Jr., but we are going to be going on to a Game 7. They did bring on Tamayo to get the save. I wouldn't think that that would prevent him from pitching at all in Game 7, but they were obviously doing everything they could with their backs against the wall to hold on to that victory. Lagerwell actually got roughed up a bit. He did strike out 10 over 5 innings, but gave up 4 earned runs. Dabovich, Bosna, and Vanasco with clean relief after that, but not enough to get us the victory. So we're heading for a pivotal Game 7 here. They say that Jack Billings is going to be the starter rather than the Cy Young Award winner, whose name I've forgotten. Tamayo, was that it? It's amazing how bad my memory is. Yeah, Tamayo. Javi Tamayo. So we will move. Let's see. Did any issues with Lopez, or did he? Yeah, Lopez started in shortstop. Doesn't look like he came out of the game. So nothing to do there. Let's finish today. Move on to, and Corey Seager eligible to come back. Oof. Is there a way to put him on the roster? I mean, we'd have to put Nicky Lopez on the playoff IL. I think that's the only way we can do it. Borgman out for a week. We don't want to put him on the IL. Nola 4 days. Would love, given that we're not going to use either of those guys, to put them on the playoff IL, but that means that they'd be ineligible for the World Series, and hoping that at least one of them heals up to be productive enough and healthy enough to play in the World Series if we get there. And then Nicky Lopez day-to-day for 2 weeks. I don't think we can afford. I don't know. This is a huge choice. You know, our chance of winning this Game 7 and getting to the World Series is better if we put Seager onto the roster. But then it means that if we do get to the World Series, we're taking Nicky Lopez, Aaron Nola, or Ben Borgman off the roster. You know, Borgman out for a week with that strained oblique, but it's a minimal impact on throwing. I think we go with the team that we've got. Definitely could be second guessing ourselves if we don't win this game, because, you know, Seager's still a plus bat, solid defensive player. Just wish that, you know, a guy who we don't want to be in the World Series, you know, if Aiden Harris was banged up right now, that would be perfect thing to put him on the IL, but because he's the guy whose roster spot is going to be likely taken by Corey Seager when he's back, but unfortunately can't do that Weasley cheating kind of stuff and pretend that he's injured here. So we're going to go to Game 7. Graceffo, go ahead and earn your money, Gordon, going up against Jack Billings here in Game 7. We've got the home field advantage, but Seattle's won 3 of the last 4 games. Let's see if we can stop the pain and move on to the World Series. And we got it done. 3-2 victory. Alex Vasquez, Series MVP. Whew. Exciting World Series triumph. You can see we got 2 runs. They came back and tied us, and then in the bottom of the 9th got the clinching runs. Doesn't say who actually. Oh, here we go. Ricardo Cabrera, run-scoring single. So the guy who was in the lineup because Seager was injured came through in the bottom of the 9th with the walk-off. Looks like it was just an incredible game, back and forth, pitchers duel. Hanafi ended up starting for Seattle. Don't even know who he is. Was 5-1 with a 3.67 ERA. Didn't start any games for them this year, but he was solid over 6 2/3, 2 earned runs, Tamayo came back on in relief, and Tamayo got the loss. Looks like Tamayo allowed Melendez to get the double. They brought on Thompson in relief. Thompson got Muley. I guess Thompson may have gotten Lopez out. Muley may have still been the responsibility of Tamayo. And then Cabrera with the run scoring and the series clinching single. Graceffo, he did his job. No hits over 5 innings, no earned runs, although he did walk 3. Wiesenberger came on. Vanasco has really been disappointing out of the bullpen. He gave up the 2 runs to put them back in the game, but then Hader came on, pitched a perfect 9th, and then we got the win in the bottom of the 9th. So it's conceivable with the injuries to Nola and Borgman that Vanasco is going to be a starter in the World Series, but we will deal with that in the coming days when we get there. The good news is that Seager is back and healthy. We're going to have to check in on Marin and Frelick and Borgman and Nola. Have a lot of big roster decisions to make, but the Kansas City Royals are headed back to the World Series for the first time in 4 years and the second time in this playthrough. And we're getting ready to face the Padres in the World Series. Solid team, 96-66, even though they did lose the division to the 100-win Giants, but 3rd in the NL in runs scored, 5th in the NL in runs allowed. So a very solid opponent for us. Haven't made the final decisions on our playoff roster yet. Obviously going to have to do that now. Borgman still impacted by that strained oblique for 4 days. Nola still impacted by that back tightness with a moderate impact. Minimal impact on throwing, but just wonder what we're going to be able to get out of him. And then Nicky Lopez, strained rib cage muscle with a minimal impact. We have put Seager on the roster, sent Aiden Harris down. Checking in on Frelick. He's out for 3 weeks, so he's certainly not in the mix at all. But Jasmine Diaz looks healthy, so that is big. I'm going to need to get Jasmine Diaz back onto the roster. I guess the question is, do we dump one of the banged-up pitchers and go with 12 pitchers and 14 position players to give ourselves a little more offensive flexibility? I just don't know what we're going to get from Nola. He's wrecked physically. He's banged up with that back tightness. But he's allegedly going to be our starter in this game. Can see that it's going to have a moderate impact on him. And then Borgman is supposed to pitch game 2 now, despite that strained oblique. I mean, we did have to use Lagerwell and Graceffo in the last 2 games of the series, so neither one of them are ready to go. Vanasco's pitched 2 days in a row in both of those last 2 games, so I don't know that he would be a good guy to slot into those first 2 games. This is painful. So Graceffo just pitched 84 pitches 2 days ago. Lagerwell pitched 70 pitches 3 days ago. And the guy who would potentially go into the lineup, Vanasco, pitched in both of those games, which is kind of why we're stuck with a Borgman or a Nola for these games 1 and 2. I mean, I guess the hope is that one of them can do a decent job. We can piece things together with the bullpen, and we can win at least one of these games before we get to Lagerwell and Graceffo in games 3 and 4. And then I guess the hope is that one of the 2 out of Nola and Borgman doesn't get so banged up with their injuries that they can't come back and pitch game 5 for us. So that also does make me a little reticent about taking a pitcher out of the pitching staff here, just because we're going to be needing the bullpen, especially these next couple days. So I think obviously we're going to be putting Diaz back onto the team, but I don't think we can afford to get rid of a pitcher, because it's conceivable that we could have 2 games in a row with where both Nola and Borgman go out there and can't get out of the first inning. Realistically, we're going to need everyone possible in the bullpen. So thinking about who we would take off the roster, clearly not one of the catchers. Palomares is good. Vasquez is great. Cabrera, Seager, Witt Jr. Chorio is an option. Nicky Lopez, if we were worried about that strained rib cage muscle, given the fact that we've got Seager back, between Witt, Cabrera, and Seager, we can kind of handle third, second, and short. But Lopez is still the best defensively. I think we want him playing shortstop if at all possible. So that then, leaves us with Nazir Muley, who's come up with some big hits for us in the playoffs. Can we look at his playoff stats? I know there's a way to do that. I can't think of it offhand. Obviously, can look at it just back in the box scores in the playoff stats back at the playoff page. But I think Muley has been better than Chorio. Chorio loved the fact that he hit 382 during the regular season after hitting 326 in AAA. He's been good. Both of those guys have been useful. Now I'm back to, do we dump a pitcher? It's an unwise move, I think, to dump a pitcher, but the reason I would think about it is that we do have the benefit of those 2 off days, those travel days. If I dump somebody, it would be Wiesenberger, who's pitched well for us and gotten a huge win in the playoffs, obviously. But he's the guy that is kind of used the least. You can see he pitches only 40-some-odd innings a year for us, even though he's a right-hander. So he's kind of one of the last guys out of the bullpen that Nichols will use. And you can see he's used as a middle reliever. But this is a tough decision. All right, I've made a decision. Wiesenberger's coming off the roster. Jasmine Diaz going on the roster. My thought process is, if Nola or Borgman suffer a more significant injury, we can probably put them, I think we can take them out and put them on the playoff IL. Even though there's not another series, I think there may be an opportunity to replace someone if either of them gets banged up. So we could bring Wiesenberger back to the roster if necessary. So it may be a dumb move, only going with 12 pitchers here with the pitching staff as banged up as it is. But definitely feel better that we've got Diaz back in the lineup. Corey Seager back at second base. We'll see what happens. In a weird way, with Corey Seager back at second base, Aaron Nola, our big free agent acquisition, pitching game 1, and Ben Borgman, like Seager, a trade deadline acquisition, pitching game 2. In a way, we're kind of set up perfectly to the way we would have theoretically wanted to be set up for this series. It's just that both of those pitchers are banged up and injured right now, so have no idea what we're going to get out of them in terms of injuries and the quality that they're pitching here in Game 1 against the Padres. Nola, obviously on the mound, excellent year when he was healthy. Hopefully that back tightness doesn't cause an issue. Going against Coleman Crowe, who looks like we're going up against another potential Cy Young Award winner here. 17-6 record. 2.62 ERA, led the league in wins, ERA, and WHIP while putting up a 3.8 WAR, 3.11 SIERA. good 3 pitches, good stuff, acceptable movement, good control. Perennial all-star for the Padres. Has also previously won 1 Cy Young Award and was the Major League champion last year with the Padres. Oh, I had forgotten that. Padres are going for a repeat here. So they didn't win the division, but they've blasted through the playoffs, and the Royals are all that stand between the Padres and back-to-back championships. Let's see what we can get out of Nola in Game 1. We pieced out the victory, 4-3. Important to get that win at home. What did we get from Nola? 2 runs over 3 2/3 innings. Injured while pitching. Back tightness 2 days with the 1 injury and then a pending injury. So we'll find out what goes on with that pending injury. We may need to replace him on the roster if we can. Hubbard, who got the victory, ugly way to earn the victory, 4 hits and an earned run over an inning and a third, but we ended up getting to Crow there at the end, gave up 10 hits and 3 walks over 6 1/3, 4 earned runs. Offensively, Vasquez the big day, 3 runs batted in, including the 2-run homer in the 3rd inning. Seager back into the lineup, 2 for 4, so got some offense out of him. Diaz back into the lineup, 2 for 2, so those 2 guys right at the top of the order, big additions back into the lineup. Got a run batted in from Bobby Witt Jr., so pretty much all of the offense was from those first 4 guys in the batting order, but hey, those are the guys that we're paying the big bucks to, so good start to the series. We did end up going heavy into the bullpen with Dabovich, Hubbard, Jacobs, and Hader, but we got one of the 4 wins that we need. We'll move on to game 2, see if we can find out what's going on with Aaron Nola and whether we've got any decisions to make as far as his injury and maybe bringing Wiesenberger back onto the playoff roster if that's an option. So looks like we're still waiting to hear on the injury from Nola. So I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty serious injury. He's already got the back tightness that he's dealing with. He's wrecked physically. Now he's got another injury coming. But in the event that it's not that serious, I don't want to just dump him because I'm still holding out some hope that he may have a brilliant playoff performance with us later in this series, but we'll find out. Borgman, come earn your money, man. We made the big trade for you before the trade deadline. We thought we might be able to sign you to a long-term deal, but you're looking for stupid money, even though you've never really proven anything at the major league level. Going up against Austin Becker, 4-4 with a 3.92 ERA over 62 innings at the major league level this year. Pretty good profile, good stuff, good movement, not the most control, but a good fastball, excellent changeup, good changeup, excellent curveball, good changeup, and he's got a knuckle curve. So definitely not an easy pitching matchup for us, but this would be a great time for a big performance from Ben Borgman. And we get a 3-1 win. Again, pitchers not getting the decisions, but who cares about who's getting the decisions? Jasmine Diaz, home run in his 2nd game back from the injury in the playoffs. Borgman, 1 run over 4 1/3 innings. Hey, I'll take it. Take it without a doubt. Jacobs came on and got the W with 2 innings of pretty clean relief. Then Mackenzie Gore, Tyler Bosma, and Josh Hader. Becker was fine, 2 runs over 5 innings, and then we got a run from Olsen. RBIs from Diaz on the homer, obviously, Seager, and then Juan Palomares with a pinch hit run-scoring single, it looks like. So 2-0 lead for the Royals as we head to San Diego. hopefully we'll have a better result in San Diego than we did in Seattle in the ALCS against the Mariners, where we dropped 2 out of 3. Would certainly love to get a couple of wins in San Diego and have played our last game for the year in Kansas City, but no guarantees that that's going to happen, but do feel good that Lagerwell and Graceffo will be pitching the next 2 games pretty much fully rested. Aaron Nola, rotator cuff strain, out for 8 weeks. So his season with us is over. His career with us is likely over. Who knows, maybe his career overall is over. But that is going to definitely change things, because that means Vanasco probably is going to be heading into the bullpen. Can we... Yeah, we'll put him on the injured list, put him on the playoff IL. And then that will allow us to bring Mr. Wiesenberger back into the pitching staff. Now with a 4-man, Vanasco hasn't pitched in 4 days, so Vanasco is going to end up going into the rotation most likely. Borgman, Lagerwell, Graceffo, and Vanasco. So it's fortunate that we didn't need Vanasco out of the pen for either of those first 2 games in the Padres series. So he'll be pretty much rested and ready to go when we need him. And we still got 8 relievers with the 4 starters. I think we're going to keep it this way. Obviously, don't have the option to just dump people. We could obviously put Nicky Lopez on the IL with that strained rib cage muscle. It's still impacting him, going to be an impact for 1 to 2 weeks, but he's still playing shortstop for us, big defensive player. So Nola is done, Wiesenberger back on the roster, so we've got a fresh arm there. I don't hate the way that we're set up. Obviously, we got to win these games, but and I certainly don't hate the fact that Nola won't be pitching anymore for us. But we've got a 2-0 lead in the World Series. We've just got to win 2 out of these last 5 games to be world champions. He was an all-star for us this year. Would have liked to get a lot more innings out of him, particularly in the playoffs, but he was generally effective when he was pitching, particularly in the regular season. So we got no complaints. We're trying to piece this thing together. Move on to Game 3 in San Diego, where we are going to have our rock, Caleb Lagerwell, on the mound. Would love to just go up 3-0 on the Padres, not mess around. Freddie Tarnock, who's been good in the playoffs, on the mound for them, 12-9 with a 3.97 ERA in the regular season. So good solid pitcher in Tarnock, 3 nice pitches, good control, good stuff, acceptable movement, extreme fly ball pitcher. So he can give up the homer. We'll see what happens. Would love to just put a stranglehold on this series behind Lagerwell today. Not to be 8-7 loss. Wiesenberger, who we just put on the team, takes the loss. 2 homers from Bobby Witt Jr., another one from Vasquez. Nick Pratto with a homer for the Padres. But the world defending champions are not going to go down without a fight. Lagerwell, rough outing, 5 earned runs over 4 2/3, so that was disappointing. And then you can see we really used up the bullpen with Jacobs, Gore, Bosma, Hader, Dabovich, Wiesenberger, and Goebel, all pitching. Extra inning game went into 13 innings. We both scored in the 11th, and then in the 13th, right fielder Jesus Garay run-scoring walk-off single in the bottom of the 13th. So can see pretty volatile in terms of the projected winners there, but the Padres end up coming back on us a few times. Bobby Witt Jr. with a monster game in the loss with the 2 homers, 2 for 6 with 5 runs driven in. So took our lumps in that one, and we definitely used a lot more pitchers out of the bullpen. We used 7 relievers today. The Padres only had to use 4 in their out of their bullpen in the 13 innings. So probably not optimal for us as we head into Game 4. Moving on to Game 4, and it looks like Vanasco is going to get the start ahead of Graceffo. Unless that could change. Now, yeah, it is back to Graceffo now that we've moved ahead a day. Matt Brash on the mound for San Diego. It looks like a average-ish major league pitcher. Was 11-9 with a 3.63 ERA, so put up a solid year for the Padres. But the 33-year-old over the course of his career, 98 ERA plus 105 FIP minus. So, like I said, pretty much a average-ish major league pitcher. We've got Graceffo on the mound, 0-1 with a 3.86 ERA in the playoffs. Would love to avoid getting tied up at 2-2, so let's see what we can get out of Graceffo. And the Padres beat us again, so similar to the Seattle series and the ALCS, we got up to a 2-0 lead at home, and now it's 2-2 heading into Game 5. Fernando Tatis Jr. with a home run. Graceffo did a good job. 1 earned run over 7 innings. Bosma in relief was a disaster. 3 hits and a walk over 2/3 of an innings, allowing 3 earned runs. So the bullpen definitely let us down a little bit, but the bullpen had a lot of pressure on them, obviously, with what we had asked them to do in Game 4. So the defending champions not going down without a fight, and we're tied 2-2 here as we head into Game 5. Certainly, it's not a mathematical must-win, but certainly viewing this Game 5 as a must-win. Would hate to be going back to Kansas City down 3-2. Coleman Crowe back on the mound, likely Cy Young Award winner. And we have, let me just make sure there's nothing interesting in the mail. Posted players from Japan. Just want to make sure if there's someone here, I don't completely ignore them. Nothing all that interesting. We got to Coleman Crowe in Game 1. We're going to have to get a second victory against potential NL Cy Young Award winner here in Game 5. And we've got Ricky Vanasco on the mound, who's 0-1 with a 16.20 ERA in these playoffs. He was 14-2 during the regular season as a starter, 3.14 ERA, 172 strikeouts in 148 innings. Let's hope Vanasco was just uncomfortable coming out of the bullpen in the playoffs, and we can get more of the type of performance he gave us as a starter this year, as he is going to be filling in for the injured Aaron Nola here in Game 5 on the road. And we did get the victory, got the win from Vanasco. Crowe saddled with a second loss. Another homer for Tatis Jr., but another homer for Bobby Witt Jr. for us. Jackson Chourio with a homer, so a big sigh of relief to get that Game 5. Certainly not over yet, but Vanasco, 2 earned runs, 2 hits over 5 innings to get the W. Then, again, very reliant on the bullpen. Wiesenberger, Gore, Dabovich, Hader, and Goebel. Goebel ends up getting the save. Brought him on in relief of Hader when Hader got banged up a little bit, and it worked out. Did give up a run there in the 9th as the Padres tried to come back on Hader, but he ended up getting the hold and then the save for Goebel. Crowe, 4 earned runs over 7 innings. Also got a run off of DePaula in the bullpen. But Ricky Vanasco, having the best year of his career, comes up big in what will almost certainly be the only postseason start he has this year. It's hard to imagine we'd be going back to him in Game 7. But another big game from Bobby Witt Jr. Drove in 3 of our 5 runs. Chourio with a pinch hit, and Nicky Lopez with the other ribbies for the Royals. So we got the win that we needed to be headed back home with that 3-2 lead. Our work is still not done. have Borgman and Lagerwell potentially on the mound for us in games 6 and 7. So, Caleb Lagerwell in game 7 is definitely something we would feel pretty good about, but still obviously want to hope we don't even go to that game 7. So game 6, Borgman back on the mound. He's been good in the playoffs. Austin Becker has also been good in the playoffs. We talked about him before, 4-4 with a 3.92 ERA, but two guys who have been really effective in the playoffs. Becker 2-1 with a 1.77 ERA, and Borgman 1-0 with a 1.59 ERA. As the Royals look to possibly win the World Series today against the San Diego Padres. And it was not to be. Bad result for the Royals. Junior Marin, day-to-day back injury, not optimal, and we got crushed 9-2. So Padres pull even. Borgman obviously not good. Did get a homer from Vasquez. Tatis Jr. with 2 homers. He is on fire in this series. Maybe he's still taking that ringworm medication that he got banned for back in 2022. Yeah, just a rough game for the Royals. They held us to 6 hits. We actually only gave up 8 hits, but they punished us. Borgman was actually solid. 2 earned runs over 5 1/3 innings, and then Jacobs and Hubbard were both just disastrous out of the bullpen. 4 earned runs in an inning for Jacobs, 3 earned runs in 2 1/3 for Hubbard. Becker was really good for them. No earned runs over 6 1/3. We did get to Finley a little bit by the time the game was out of control. Junior Marin, those back spasms, minimal impact on hitting, moderate impact on running. Not optimal that he's going to be banged up. Hasn't really played well in these playoffs either. So we're headed to a decisive Game 7. Just giving the playoff roster some thought. I mean, I guess we could bail on Marin, but he's still got a good bat. The guy hit 31 homers, 94 driven in for us this year. I don't think we can afford to put him on the IL. We've got a few pitchers who are relatively rested at this point. Hopefully Lagerwell will be ready tomorrow. There's no one besides Caleb Lagerwell on our team that I would want on the mound for a Game 7. He is the definition of a professional pitcher. You look at the consistency in these stats over the 6 years he's been with us. He's pitched 33 games a year each of the last 5 years. His ERA kind of always in the mid to high 3s. Sierra's always in the low to mid 3s. Puts up a positive WAR every year. Positive ERA plus. Positive FIP minus, except 1 year, his first year with us when he was league average. It's a crapshoot in a Game 7, but if I have to pick a pitcher, if I can pick any pitcher on our team to pitch this Game 7, it's going to be Caleb Lagerwell. So from that perspective, we've got what we want. Going up against Freddie Tarnok, 12-9, 3.97 ERA for the Padres. Let's hope that earning the home field advantage pays off for the Royals here. In Game 7, winner take all, Padres going for a repeat World Series championship, and the Royals trying to win their second title in 5 years. It all comes down to this one game. Freddie Tarnok for the Padres, Caleb Lagerwell for Kansas City. And the Royals, 8-0 victory. Caleb Lagerwell must have been a brilliant start. Josh Hader with the save. Got a home run from Alex Vasquez. Fernando Tatis Jr. gets the MVP award in a loss. That is fine. The Royals with a second world championship in this playthrough in our 10th season of this playthrough. So we've been going for it the last several years with mixed results. Definitely have been trading away minor leaguers, trading away prospects, and bringing in, at times, older players and injury-prone players to get us over the hump, and finally got back over the hump and got the win here in the 2031 series, World Series. So take a look at the box score. Caleb Lagerwell, 5 innings pitched, no earned runs allowed. Jacobs came on, no earned runs over 2 1/3, and then Hader, 1 2/3 innings, allowing 1 hit. So excellent pitching from the Royals. You can see we did get to Tarnock and then Hambley and Pelzer later in the game when we kind of piled on to secure the victory. Marin, even banged up, drove in 3 runs in the clincher. Young center fielder Velasquez with 2 ribbies. Also Vasquez and Seager with runs batted in. A lot of guys scored runs. Diaz, Palomares, Witt Jr., Vasquez, Marin, Melendez, Muley, and Nicky Lopez. So pretty much everyone on the roster contributed to that victory. It was a painful run through the playoffs for these Royals. I mean, obviously, it all worked out, but you look at this playoff tree, nothing was easy. We went to a deciding Game 5 against the Yankees and won, went to a deciding Game 7 against the Mariners and won, and then now went to a deciding Game 7 against the Padres and won. So, pretty psyched that we've got another World Series victory for the Royals in this playthrough. Obviously going to have a ton of decisions to make for next season. Don't want to spend too much time thinking about that now, but starting catcher MJ Melendez, and then 3 of our starting pitchers, Aaron Nola, Ricky Vanasco, and Ben Borgman are free agents. Our closer, Josh Hader, is going to be a free agent, and a big bat in our lineup, Jasmed Diaz, is going to be a free agent. So we're going to have a ton of decisions to make in this coming off season. Now, the good news is with all those big players who are becoming free agents, we do potentially have some money to spend. And with the fact that we've just gone on a real long playoff run and won the World Series and made some money this year, I think there's a prospect that our budget may get cranked up another notch next year also, which would certainly be positive for us in terms of being able to either keep some of those players if we decide that we want to, or move on from them and use that money on somebody else if we think that there might be better options in free agency. So it's going to be another real busy off season for the Royals, but we're going into that off season in a position of strength. Best record in baseball, and we were able to back it up in the playoffs by winning the 2031 World Series. So until our next episode, when we start taking a look at the key performers for the 2031 season and start making plans for the off season, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.